Moreover, our bill cares for our wounded warriors. It expands TRICARE benefits for certain military retirees. It requires mental health assessments of service members prior to deployment, and it calls for an increase in the number of military and civilian behavioral health personnel. We also include a comprehensive review of the Department of Defense's activities for the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of substance abuse disorders among service members. This is particularly important in light, Mr. President, today with a report that's been released, the EPICON study that directly focuses on Fort Carson. This is a study that's initiated last year to examine the records of soldiers at Fort Carson who've been involved in violent crimes since returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. The Army Surgeon General, Lieutenant General Schoonmaker, put together a team of experts to identify any commonalities among the violent crimes. I had a chance to sit down with General Schoonmaker yesterday, and he and his team have concluded that although risk factors alone do not explain a clustering of crime in the 4th Brigade Combat Team of the 4th Infantry Division, the 4 of the 4, a combination of factors converged to increase the risk that these soldiers would be engaged in violent crime. One concern that General Schoonmaker expressed was that the stigma and lack of referral to the Army Substance Referral Program for required substance abuse screening may have increased the overall risk of violent behavior. The General talked about the need to reduce barriers to treatment for alcohol and drug abuse, which is an Army-wide concern. He mentioned pilot projects ongoing at a number of posts where soldiers who self-identify a substance abuse problem can get treatment without the knowledge of their commanders, helping them seek treatment without fear of appearing weak in the eyes of their superiors. And I'll be urging the Army to establish a similar pilot program at Fort Carson. Mr. President, let me turn to the bill and what's notable for what it does not include. There are policies that are difficult to change because they are antiquated and no longer reflect the reality of our society. The failed policy, don't ask, don't tell, is a good example of this. But the fact that it will be difficult to repeal doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. Since the implementation of this program in 1993, the Armed Forces have discharged over 12,000 brave and qualified combat troops, code breakers, medical and intelligence specialists, and skilled translators simply for being gay. This includes over 300 service personnel who've been discharged since President Obama took office. Mr. President, this is 2009. I believe this discriminatory policy undermines the strength of our military and the fairness of our great nation. We're engaged in 2 wars. It's counterproductive to discharge service members who have critical skills to winning these wars, even as the military has to spend scarce dollars to replace them. My opinion, we need to bring the unjustness of this policy to the forefront now, and I plan to work with my colleagues and with the administration to see that we accomplish in a timely manner the full repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. There are things that this bill doesn't include that it shouldn't include, Mr. President, such as spending on underperforming, unnecessary, and outdated weapon systems. It took courage for Secretary Gates to make the recommendations he did, since it's never easy to stop spending programs in our defense budget. But we need to stop funding programs that significantly exceed their budget, and we need to stop spending limited dollars to buy more capability than the nation needs. There are also provisions in this bill that shouldn't be included, such as additional spending on the F-22. I voted in committee against an amendment to add $1.75 billion to the bill to purchase F-22 aircraft that the military does not want, does not need, and says we cannot afford. Now, the F-22 is a valuable and capable aircraft, but the question is whether we need more than 187 F-22s to meet the nation's requirements, and there is bipartisan agreement that we do not. Presidents Obama and Bush, 2 Secretaries of Defense, 3 Chairmen of the Joint Chiefs, and current members of the Joint Chiefs agree that 187 aircraft are sufficient. So, Mr. President, let me conclude by saying that this is a good bill. It's a bill that balances the need to sustain our current warfighting abilities with the need to prepare for the next threat to our national security. It's critical that we're able to meet the operational needs of our military today, even as we continue to prepare our men and women in uniform to be the best trained and equipped force in the world. This is a good bill for our nation and for my home state of Colorado. It's a carefully drafted and considered bipartisan bill, and I urge its passage. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Michigan.
First, let me thank the senator from Colorado, not just for his statement and his support for